Hello and welcome back to Counseling Corner, brought to you by UC Davis Student Health and Counseling Services. Each episode, we will address a new mental health and wellness topic. I'm Dr. Karen Miller, and today we're covering the broad topic of eating disorders and disordered eating. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Mallorey Gatti. Dr. Gatti is the Eating Disorder Specialty Post-Doctoral Resident and Interim Eating Disorder Treatment Coordinator at UC Davis Student Health and Counseling Center. Dr. Gatti has a background in physical wellness as a personal trainer, and recognizing the connection between mind and body, she pursued her doctorate in clinical psychology. Her passion is to assist clients in finding peace in the totality of who they are, including mind, body, spirit, and as a social being. Welcome, Dr. Gatti.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Yes, we're so glad to be talking to you today. And I'm wondering if maybe we can just start by giving an overview of eating disorders, disordered eating, and body image, maybe issues or concerns.
Absolutely. So eating disorders, disordered eating, poor body image, whatever you prefer to call it, it's an unhelpful relationship with food and body image. And this can really range from being a passing thought every once in a while to being an invasive thought that's happening much of every day. And these thoughts can cause behaviors that are unhelpful in somebody's life, such as restricting food intake, eating way past fullness, or doing behaviors to try to rid your body of the food that you've eaten. And when these thoughts and behaviors increase to a point, then they may become an eating disorder. And I want to mention that eating disorders are both psychological and physical illnesses. So somebody doesn't choose to have an eating disorder. It's a manifestation of genetics and environmental factors. These could be things such as somebody's family and peers influence the way that they see the world, but that it's nobody's fault. So I know sometimes we hear that like families are to blame for eating disorders. That's not true. It's a multitude of factors. And we also know that eating disorders impact people regardless of race, ethnicity, age, religion, socioeconomic status, or any other diversity factor. We know that they don't have a certain look, so we can't just look at somebody and determine this person does or doesn't have an eating disorder. And I think it's really important to recognize that we never know who might be struggling with an eating disorder.
Yes, all really important points there. And I especially like the point about, that it ranges, that no one person is exempt from potentially, developing an eating disorder, and that no one's to blame, right? I think that there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with eating disorders and disordered eating, and seeking help is so important, and to be able to break down those barriers of shame and guilt. And so I'm wondering, kind of as a follow-up, when do you think people should seek help for any of these patterns?
Absolutely. So I think one thing to look out for is negative and critical comments about their own bodies or other people's bodies. That really shows us that judgmental voice is going off in their head around food and body image. Preoccupation with food intake, or also frequent dieting practices. So 1 in 3 people who engage in a diet develop disordered eating, and 1 in 4 people who engage in dieting end up developing a full-blown eating disorder, which I think is really alarming when we think about the rates that people are dieting in our current culture. Other things to look out for is if somebody's eating alone often, or they're declining to eat with others, not going out to eat, or when you do go out to eat, they're not eating anything. Maybe they just get a drink. You might see somebody who's cutting food into small pieces, potentially like putting a napkin over food to cover that up. This person might be somebody who goes to the bathroom frequently after consuming a meal, potentially being purging. And then sometimes frequent exercise. People who experience eating disorders often can use exercise as a way to try to compensate for the intake that they've had that day. And so that's something that can really, I think, be sneaky and creep up into being a part of an eating disorder.
Yeah, you talk about that kind of sneaky and even like cultural expectations right now. And that has me thinking about maybe less typical eating disorders, or maybe not less typical, but less well known, in terms of, behaviors that are really restrictive in what people eat that seem like it's healthy, quote unquote, healthy eating, or even just the trends to working out a lot, and being very, like quote unquote fit. And so I
Right.
wonder if maybe you can tell us a little bit more about like those sort of patterns that are maybe under the surface of kind of
Yeah.
culturally like salient behaviors lately.
Absolutely. And when I think about when you say that is, people who are in larger bodies, who live in larger bodies, are often praised when they're working out, when
Mm-hmm.
they're eating, restrictively, and when they're losing weight. And this person can be in a lot of pain and they can
Mm-hmm.
have an eating disorder. Again, it doesn't matter what body size we're living in, that can be an eating disorder. Whereas people in smaller body sizes, um, those types of things are more quickly or readily seen as eating
Mm-hmm.
disorders, even though there's this same behavioral pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's really important to notice the way that our culture discriminates against people in larger body sizes and doesn't necessarily see their struggles in the same way when they can be doing the exact same behaviors as somebody who's living in a smaller body size.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think especially um, knowing, we also know that in medical doctor appointments, people who are of larger body sizes or of different ethnicity than Caucasian, because I think we often associate Caucasian with eating disorders, the
Mm-hmm.
typical quote unquote white girl disease, which it is
Yeah.
absolutely not. People of color are not screened for eating disorders as often.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very alarming. Again, eating disorders can affect anyone.
Right.
So I think that's really important to note. And also just thinking about those current trends of being, quote unquote, fit and healthy, and how our culture is seeing, is kind of treating body size.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to notice that this encourages eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to think about how we're playing a role in that piece, how the words that we use may impact somebody positively or negatively, and that we do have an impact on how we relate to other people, to be able to, advocate and to compliment people on things other than body size, or to notice different attributes of somebody that make them wonderful than not just body size.
Yeah, that's a really nice reminder. And you're right. I think that there's just constant conversation that happens, just sort of in our culture, in our society, around body, around weight, around shape, around exercise, and food. And it's challenging, because those things are so interwoven into our daily fabric, to kind of break patterns like that. Um, and it's so important, to make sure that we're not perpetuating, um, one, stereotypes, but also perpetuating, that someone is struggling. Right.
Yes, that culture idea of smaller is better, or thin
Mm-hmm.
is better, or um, that you're not fit if you're of a larger body size. We know that's not true. There's been
Mm-hmm.
research that has proven people in larger body sizes who practice positive habits
Mm-hmm.
are just as healthy as people in smaller body sizes, if
Mm-hmm.
not more healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really not about weight, shape, and size. It's really about how are we taking care of ourselves? How are we
Mm-hmm.
taking care of the body that we're in? And that includes a multitude of things, right? That includes, physical, that includes mental, that includes our spiritual side of our life. Like, how are we taking care of the totality of who we are?
Yeah. That's wonderful. And so I'm wondering then, what are some of the services available through student health, and how can the students at UC Davis really get some support around this?
Yeah, so I'm so excited to tell you about some of the services. I'm really proud to be a part of UC Davis, where I feel like we have a really great team approach towards working with folks who are experiencing eating disorders or struggles with body image. So we do have brief counseling, brief individual counseling for students at the counseling center. And there's an opportunity to work with a team, which is a dietitian, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist if needed, and also the therapist. Now we do work in a shorter term model, but the team will help this person kind of determine, like, is this the right setting for me to be working in, or is there a better setting for me to be working in? So if we need to help that person find a team that better fits them, that's something that we're able to do. We also hold two groups for people who are experiencing eating disorders. So we have our Nourish group, which is a process group, and it's a place for people, anybody, male, female, any diversity factor. We are welcome everybody to come share and process through their eating disorder experience. And the cool thing is that the group members are able to support each other in these just amazing, amazing ways with their experiences, how they've overcome different parts of their eating disorder, where they might feel stuck. And it's a really cool community. We also have a group called Heal, and that's more of a skills building group. So in that group, we're teaching, how do we really kind of build other skills where we can regulate our emotions, or, kind of what's going on for us, rather than going straight to food or deprecating on my body, as a backlash towards myself. How can I create some more helpful coping mechanisms? So we go over mindfulness. We talk about how to handle interpersonal reactions. We go over distress tolerance and how we can really regulate our emotions through these times. We have the Body Project, which is a student-led initiative, and they lead workshops on campus to help people build a better relationship to body image. And it's really cool. It's really welcoming of all different experiences of body and walks through life, and just the conversations that the students have are just incredible. And then also, students and professors are more than welcome to request workshops from the counseling center. I know that the eating disorder specialist, who's an intern, and I were going out to teach a class, and we've taught classes in the past quarter. We're doing an outreach with the cross-cultural center. So just contacting the counseling center if you'd like resources.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I've been really struck by just the wholeness and the holistic approach to treating students and supporting students at UC Davis, and the different resources that are available are all just so incredible. And I'm wondering maybe more about, during this specific time of quarantine, what are the current trends and challenges that are maybe coming up with eating disorders, and are there other resources available for students?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of challenges within the eating disorder community and people struggling with body image in this time. Um, I think our culture has been really unhelpful in ways. I look at social media, specifically TikTok and Instagram, where um, people are really creating these fads talking about self-improvement, and this is a time to be better, get better, and doing like fitness routines and fitness programs as if that's the only way to get, like, getting thinner is getting better. Like, that's not true. And so it's perpetuating these stereotypes again. The diet and fitness industries are really preying on this time,
Mm.
for us to, you know, be buying their products, and to be working out at home. And I think it's really dangerous, to be thinking, again, that the only way to be better is to increase our physical fitness.
Yeah.
And so I'd encourage people at this time to really be thinking about their overall wellness. I think that remembering that we're in a pandemic, this is scary, and having self-compassion, knowing that we're not going to have the same capacity to do the things that we were able to do outside of this pandemic. Our mind is kind of fragmented and in different worried states, and that's okay. That we might fall back into different eating disorder or body image behaviors, and that's okay. We build the insight to it, we reach out for help, and we work on it together. And I think that's another thing that I really like to think about in this pandemic is knowing that we're not alone, and that other people are having these same struggles with body image and eating disorders or disordered eating, and knowing that there are places to reach out. And so something I'd like to provide, if I can, is links for students to go to. There's actually a lot of free eating disorder resources that are available at this time, where people can jump into a support group. And I think those are just a really cool way to connect with other people around this topic. And I think it's important that we build connection around this at a time where we might be more disconnected than ever, to be able to lean into each other for support.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you think we didn't cover today that maybe you want to add for students?
So what you say to yourself and what you say to other people matters. So remembering to be kind to ourselves, to say positive or compassionate things to ourselves and others. That it's important to look at intentions. So doing things that feel good for our body and our soul and ourself, rather than basing it on how it's going to impact our appearance. Doing things that really fill us in that full sense.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gatti, for your time today. I think that this information was so helpful for students, and just a reminder also to, if you're struggling with eating disorders or disordered eating, or maybe, something that we said today kind of got you thinking about the patterns in your own life, to please reach out to the Counseling Center for support. And again, just thank you for your time, Dr. Gatti, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Until we talk again, this is Dr. Karen Miller, wishing you hope, health, and happiness. Stay Aggie strong.